beat in this league. So, I mean, if they're at 100%, you're going to have to play your ass off to beat these guys because they are the real deal for sure. And yeah, I could see both of them and LA moving up in the standings, and teams like Calgary and Phoenix, while both potentially still able to make the playoffs, probably not staying in the spots that they are. So yeah, now moving out of the top 8, not really a surprise, I guess. The 9th spot, we got Minnesota, 2-1-2. They're playing as about what I would expect them to play. I don't see them making the playoffs, even with their, even with Ryan Suter playing as well as he does play. I mean, Suter is just a machine, one of the best defensemen in the league. And obviously you got Parise, who always plays well. I mean, he's a consummate 30-goal guy. And don't forget, they got Nino Niederreiter, who is actually playing better than I expected him to play. He's looked really good, and maybe this is his breakout season potentially, or at least starting to aim in that direction. Even with their team playing it to full potential, I don't know if I see them making the playoffs. I mean, I guess they could squeeze in the 8th spot. They have a decently deep roster, and obviously guys like Jonas Brodin, potentially the next Carlson, like he's one of the up-and-coming offensive defensemen in the league. He's a potential Norris guy down the road. He has a lot of capabilities. And then you got guys like Charlie Coyle, Jared Spurgeon, obviously offensive threat in Jason Pominville. So, I mean, they have this roster of potentials that if they were all playing 100%, yeah, they probably would make the playoffs, squeezing in that 8th spot. But I don't know. I don't know if they will make the playoffs this year. I'm leaning towards saying that they won't. And if they did make it, they would be like one of those wild cards that made it in, at the very last minute.
I think they will make it. I think they're going to be in the playoffs in a 7th or 6th position probably. I think they have a lot of potential over some of the other teams in the West, mainly because of Josh Harding. I really like his goaltending. He's been great early, posting a .944 save percentage and goals against just over 1.
He's wrestled that starting job away from Backstrom, which is really impressive.
Yeah. Exactly, and you're seeing this more in the NHL. You're seeing tandems come up and people battling for that starting position, and that can only strengthen your team to have two goalies competing against each other, trying to, win you games so that they can keep their job. And the only thing that I don't like right now is Matt Cook on top of the point totals in Minnesota. I don't like Matt Cook, and it's a little bit scary to think that he would be a leading scorer on any team in the NHL. So you don't have a lot of potential when he's beating out guys like Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. But I think they're going to have a great year, honestly, better than a lot of people think. I don't think you're going to see them in the 3rd spot or winning the division or anything like that, but we'll see them in the playoffs. Mikko Koivu really wants to play well for that team and finally make a strong postseason appearance. Ryan Suter needs to prove that he's just as good without Weber. And Zach Parise, taking that huge contract and a little bit of a letdown last year. So look for them to kind of spark and try and live up to the names that they've made for themselves.
I think Weber proved a lot of people about that last year, being a Norris finalist. I mean, I think he showed that he didn't need Weber.
It's tough to shut people up with a half season. I mean, like a
yeah,
lot of people
that's true. You do need a full 82
Subban
games.
Might not have or shouldn't have won this and blah 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 blah. I mean, a lot of people hate Subban to begin with, so that probably had something to do with it. But it's hard to say that you proved yourself after only 40 games.
This is true. You really need that full season to really shut people up and prove your doubters wrong. And I mean, yeah, listening to you talk like that, I kind of agree. I'm kind of starting to agree with you now. Maybe, 7th spot, maybe 6th. But I mean, you could see Minnesota at the end of the day beating out teams like, Calgary and Phoenix, who really don't deserve probably to be as high as they are. So I mean, if Minnesota plays to their capabilities and a team like Phoenix or Calgary stop overperforming, then yeah, I mean, Minnesota making the playoffs seems more likely. Maybe 6th spot. I'm going to still lean towards 7th, maybe squeaking in on the 8th spot. But I agree with you in a sense. I mean, they do have a good roster, so if they all play to their potential, the playoffs should not be out of the question at all.
Yeah, and I hate to say this for Canada, but moving on the list, the Winnipeg Jets, I think, are going to fall to near where Edmonton is, and I think both of them are going to stay near the bottom. Winnipeg's going to have a tough time in this conference. It's new hockey for them, less travel time, but
it's
the same
3-3
thing is with Detroit.
Yeah.
Detroit has to figure out all these new teams and
3-3-0 right now. 3-3-0.
Yeah, so not doing too bad, holding their own, but at the same time, it's going to be a grind of a season. They don't have a very deep and talented roster. They have enough to grind out some wins, but it's a talented conference, and they're not going to be used to playing against these teams. They didn't even see any of them last year. So.
Yeah, and so many of their guys still are young and unproven. I mean, they are like Colorado last year. Is this the year they take that step and get the young guys, other than Evander Kane, who always looks terrific? Is this the year that their young guys take that leap forward? Well, right now it looks like no. I mean, they're not ready to take that leap yet. They are still too young overall to really be a threat. Down the road, even one season from now, they might be top 7, top 8. They have the skill there potentially.
But once you get Mark Scheifele and Evander Kane a year or two older, Tobias Enstrom, they'll definitely be solid in a season or two. But this year, I just don't see them cracking the top 10 in that conference.
I agree with you. I mean, they went from a very easy division in the Southeast to a very difficult division. I mean, their division, it's let's look this up here, actually. I'm kind of curious now that I'm thinking about it. Who do you got? They are in the same division with, Minnesota, Chicago, St. Louis, and Colorado. So, I mean, they have not exactly an easy division. They have definitely a lot more challenges in front of them this year. This year might be the sort of the write-off year where they have to adapt to their new surroundings, which is too bad because, I mean, I really felt after the last couple of years that Winnipeg was so close to that playoff spot, almost making it a couple of years ago. They're so close to that spot, that 8th spot, and it feels like they're kind of regressing this year, only because of how different their opponents are. And it's too bad to say that, because I know Jets fans are probably like, yeah, this is the year we finally make it into the playoffs, and I don't think so, Jets fans. I think it's going to be one more year before you see Winnipeg really take that next step. 11th spot, you got my Vancouver Canucks, 3-3-0. Pretty much playing as I expected October to fold. I recognize Tortorella's system is vastly different from Vigneault's, especially defensively. Guys like Luongo really have to adapt their game to all of these blocked shots, and guys have to get better at blocking them because, as Luongo himself said, if you're going to block the shot and deflect it into my own net, you're making it much harder on me. So, I mean, I'm not at all surprised at the record. I had a feeling October would kind of be a write-off month for the Canucks as they really adapted to the new system.
It usually is. I mean, for the Canucks, even without adapting to a new system, they just seem to need to warm up in the league, and by December they're dominating. So we might see that again. Tortorella is the big question mark.
They still have a very good team, and I mean, Luongo has looked quite good for the most part, other than that one goal against Montreal. But to be fair, I don't really blame it on him. I mean, I think it was Hamhuis that really just crapped the bed there. Hamhuis has been our worst player so far this season, which is weird because he's usually our most consistent player. He's a very good defenseman. Some people are even wondering if he might get an Olympic tryout this year. He's very, very, very reliable in the back end, but he has probably been the one that's had the most trouble adapting to Tortorella's system. I mean, he's really been struggling. It's not going to continue. He will find his game. He's a very skilled player. And they do have a very good roster. And, I mean, I guess one of the few highlights is the Sedins have continued to dominate. I mean, they are the Harlem Globetrotters when they're out on the ice. They are a dominating force, and they've played incredibly...
One goal in Montreal was insane. Like, past the goal line, look back, and
pass to
the slot. Price is like in no man's land on that.
Yeah, Price is just like, are you kidding me? Like, what are we supposed to... Yeah, I mean, it's just they're incredibly skilled. And I mean, next to Datsuk, they're two of the most wizardry-style hockey players out there. They just look like magicians out there. So they're playing very well. But at the same time, you got guys like Ryan Kessler, who's been completely invisible. Obviously, Burrow's injury has been a big loss. Cassian...
I feel like we talk about Kessler being invisible a lot. And it's to me, it's like almost like Alex Kovalev. Like, so much talent, and we just don't see it all the time. Like, why not? There's no reason. There's no solid reason. I can never come up with why isn't Kessler doing well. There's no logical reason other than that injury in the playoffs against Boston when he kind of went silent late because they didn't announce all their injuries. But other than that, it's like, where are you?
Yeah, Kessler's hard,
especially since a 40-goal season.
I know. He's hard to figure out because when he's on his game, he's one of the best players in the league, especially in a two-way style. I mean, he's right up there with Bergeron and Datsuk and Taves as one of the top two-way guys in the NHL. When he's 100%, he just has looked like he's been struggling as well with Tort's system. A lot of guys have. Higgins looks like he's still figuring the system out. Booth has looked better, but still not as good as, the 35-goal scoring Booth has looked. So, I mean, there are a lot of guys that are still, you could tell, very hesitant about the new system. Hansen has been struggling. Cassian obviously being suspended for the first 5 games. He's looked okay, but he's got to get going, obviously. He's going to take him a couple weeks to find his game after that suspension. The suspension to Edler doesn't help. Sidetracking for a second, I was really annoyed that was a 3-game suspension at first, especially since it didn't look like it was an intentional headshot. It was sort of an accident. Hertl ducked at the last minute. Edler wasn't really able to stop at that point. He was mid-flight. So, I mean, I was really annoyed by that suspension, but then I thought, well, he is a repeat offender. That's why he's getting the 3 games, because this is the 3rd suspension that he's had. So if it wasn't the fact that he was a repeat offender, Edler probably would have just gotten a game. A lot of Canucks fans were pissed that he got 3 games for that semi-accidental hit. But you got to remember, that's the rules. If you're a repeat offender, it's going to count towards more games. So I'm not surprised by the 3 games. It's been unfortunate. Edler's looked really good. He's looked better than Hamhuis, which is very bizarre because Edler is usually the defenseman that struggles the most, but he's looked quite good under a Torch system. So it sucks to have him out for those 3 games. Burrow's injury obviously messes with the chemistry a lot and the lines. So I'm not super worried. I don't think it's a write-off season for the Canucks. I'm not freaking out. I'm very confident they'll make the playoffs. I don't know how deep they'll go in the playoffs. Like, I think if they make the second round, that would be overachieving for them this year. But they will. I just don't see them going deep. I think they are sort of in a semi-rebuild. I don't see them going deep this year. They still have a very good team, but I'm sorry, as a Canucks fan myself, it pains me to say, I think a second round exit seems likely. And if they go farther than the second round, in my opinion, they're overachieving at that point. But I'm not worried. Even in the 11th spot right now, I think the playoffs are a foregone conclusion. They will make it. They will find their game. You got to give them a month or so, Canucks fans, but the Canucks will find their game, and I think they're going to have another good year. And I really like Tortorella so far. I'm really impressed by what he's brought.
Just a little more on Ryan Kesler, too, just because I was going through the stats here. And a little bit surprising, actually. Not only is he not on the score sheet and been invisible, he's actually been detrimental to the team. He's -5 after 6 games, and he leads the team in penalty minutes with 11 penalty minutes after 6 games, too. So injuring the team right now. Not even invisible, just actually hurting his teammates here.
Yeah, so he's really got to find his game.
Especially that's unheard of when it's a player that you've compared not only just 1 season ago or 2 seasons ago being compared to Mark Messier. Mm-hmm. Like, come on.
Yeah. No, it's true.
He needs to step up if they're going to do what you are saying they're going to do. I agree with you that a second place exit is likely, but if they're going to make the playoffs, he needs to be a way bigger role player.
And let's clarify, we're not talking about the Vancouver Canucks Mark Messier, who, as far as I'm concerned, that never happened. That never actually happened. That was a dream sequence. Mark Messier has only been a Ranger and an Edmonton Oiler, and I'll fight you if you say otherwise.
And what about Sundin as well, eh?
Actually, you know what? It's weird. Some Canucks fans actually ragged on that. I didn't mind that move at the time. I knew he was only going to be there for the playoffs. I liked Sundin in a Canucks uniform for the limited time that he was on the Canucks. I didn't think he was bad at all. He was fine. He wasn't great, but I mean, he was. I don't think he was detrimental like Messier was. I mean, he was. It was cool to see him in that limited time, to see a Hall of Famer, his very last season finished with the Canucks. It was cool to see. And I got to say, I was very excited when I heard about that trade. I was really, really happy that Gillis was able to land him. Or not the trade, I should say, a free agent signing. Moving along, 12th spot. Not really surprising. Dallas is in 12th at 2-2-0. They don't really have that deep of a roster. I'm not expecting them to make the playoffs this year. One amazing statistic, though, and this carries over from last season when we were talking about this kid at the end of the year, Alex Chasen, he's got 11 points in his first 10 games in the NHL. How about that stat?
Yeah, that's insane. And you look at their roster right now, and there's just the young guys everywhere. Jamie Benn, Jordy Benn, Tyler Seguin. They're on top of the score sheet in this city. And Tyler Seguin, it's great to see his name up there. 6 points in 4 games. Dallas is not going to make the playoffs, but you gotta have Tyler Seguin having a great season so he can shut up a lot of his critics. The trade from Boston, just saying he didn't fit in with that roster. They got Louis Eriksson, which is a great pickup, but Seguin doing well in Dallas, I'm really happy to see that. Canadian talent, him and Jamie Benn both doing well. Just awesome.
I mean, and fast forward a year or two. I mean, when Seguin is in his prime with Benn and Niskanen and Chasen, I mean, in theory, they got a pretty good young core, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that they might a couple years from now be a pretty damn good team. But
remember, Seguin's only 21 years old. Like, there's 4 or 5 years left before he enters his prime.
Yeah.
So 6 points in 4 games, looking to have a breakout season at the age of 21. That's awesome.
And Niskanen was a steal for them as well. I mean, he's a highly skilled player. So, I mean, they definitely have some bright spots. And, I mean, there will be a playoff entrance eventually. It's not going to be this year, though, I'm sorry, Stars fans. I will say this, though. Best new jerseys in the league. Those jerseys are awesome. Just eye-popping.
I don't care for them too much. I mean, not that they're bad.
Oh, come on!
I wasn't blown away. I didn't think it was anything spectacular, but it's a nice change.
That bright green out there, it's just like, oh, it's great.
The color's great. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, if that's the best thing you're talking